Bitcoin falling 20% in 24 hours and then some more. It's down about 30% or well over 30% in the last week. The price hitting the lowest level since the end of January.
34% on it. I'm looking at the significant fall in the cryptocurrency.
What are they doing right now as the cryptos unravel?
It's been a weird 4 days because we're really seeing a sell-off, and I'm just not used to it, right? I don't know how you get used to this sort of day-to-day volatility, but I wanted to share a resource with you today that has completely transformed, my mental health. I think 4 years ago when I first started dabbling with crypto, like everybody else, in that sort of tail end of 2017, we saw this parabolic jump to almost $20,000 per Bitcoin, and then it just fell off a cliff to, $3,400 before coming all the way back up to, 65,000 per coin. It's incredible. And I actually found this resource very, very helpful. Now, this is not intended to be investment advice. I mean, you guys may be completely for or against cryptos. You might be selling off or hodling, or you might be buying more right now. I have no idea. It's a crazy time. And I've seen my gains drop by over 50%. Just recently, but we're still not seeing the same type of dips that we did before. And I think if somebody would have just shared this with me in 2017, 18, I would have never sold and I would have never lost. The only time you lose is when you sell. Okay. Go ahead and leave a comment below. Are you selling right now? I'm very curious. And if you are, why? Maybe you're buying more, or maybe you're choosing just to hold on to what you have. I want to show the power of dollar cost averaging. And I'm going to give you this website by the end of the video. So stay around. I'm going to start with, on this calculator on the left, using very small numbers, very affordable numbers over very short periods of time, just to show that every single personality type under any current financial situation should be able to afford to get into Bitcoin or cryptos. And that if you do this over long enough periods of time and you're smart enough about your investment choices, you probably are going to see the biggest payoff that you can expect anywhere. And so this is why I'm continuing to buy the dips. Every single chance I get, I continue to put more money in. Let's go ahead and start at just $10 a week. I hope everybody here on the channel would agree that a $10 weekly contribution towards your long-term wealth is pretty weak. If you're not able to do better than that, it would be my argument that something is going really wrong in your life. And if you have any control over that at all, it would be worth it to do something about it. Let's take a look at this over every week, like I said, and we're going to just extend this out over just a 3-year starting point, because 3 years, I think, is a really manageable timeline. It's easy for people to think 3 years out, but it gets a lot harder when you start talking about 5 years, 10 years, and beyond. So let's take a look at these first two rows. If you had invested that money, $1,570 into gold, it'd be worth $1,925 now over that 3-year period. $1,570 into the Dow Jones would be worth $1,999. A 22.6 and 27% adjustment. Certainly nothing I'm going to get too excited about. Versus a $1,570 total investment into Bitcoin over the past 3 years would now be worth $11,500. Now we're talking. Now let's go ahead and have a little fun with this. Let's take that same $10 weekly contribution and just sort of pop it out over 5 years. And we're going to continue to compare it to the other two here. Let's start with those. We've got a $2,610 total investment. Again, pretty weak for 5 years. $3,428 value if you had put that into gold versus a $3,690 value if you put it into the Dow. And you're seeing a 31 versus 41% improvement versus a $2,610 contribution into Bitcoin worth $58,000. We're starting to see a pattern form. If we do this just over the amount of time that most people pay for their vehicles, but we only use $10 weekly, or around $43 per month, we're looking at a $246,000 total value off of that $3,600, which is a 6,600% gain. Okay, let's continue to have some fun and actually put realistic numbers in here where, again, a $100 weekly contribution should be the bare bones minimum that you guys are working towards putting into your future. If you don't, I'm not quite sure how you'll find a way to ever retire, much less leave, generational funding to your kids and grandkids. I mean, if you want to have a legacy to leave behind, you're going to have to work harder than this. Now, the good news here is that over that 7-year period, a $36,600 sum, easily a car for most households. You could instead take that same amount and put it into Bitcoin over the last 7 years and have a $2.5 million value. Now think about that. If you're looking out your window right now into your driveway and you see your Lexus, been a great car, really reliable, it's got 100,000 miles on it, you spent $36,000 for it, it's now 7 years old. Guess what, folks? You're staring at a $2.5 million car, or what your car could have done for you. And this is the very reason that I rushed home off of our recent RV trek and sold the Polaris. I was thinking, hey, I can afford this. I've had my, several really good years in a row. Why not buy a $30,000 side-by-side, a $4,000 trailer? And as I'm out on the road and I find this resource, this very tool, I'm thinking, wait a second here. So what you're telling me is that in 7 years, my Polaris will not only be 7 years old, but I'm going to have to try and justify the fact that it's actually a $2.5 million lost opportunity. No, I put it on the market the same day we got home. I took photos of it, put it on the market, sold it for $27,000, took a considerable loss there, $7,000 loss, and I turned around and bought cryptocurrencies with it. Now, again, dollar cost averaging implies that you're buying both high and buying low. So down here, when you first started 7 years ago, your portfolio is just gradually growing based on these $100 per week contributions. And then all of a sudden, boom, big run. And this is right in that 2017, 2018 chapter where we saw this fall off a cliff, and that $762,000 value, holy smokes, that's crazy, is all the way down to $276,000. It lost 65% of its value. Now, let's not forget, I lost 65% of value on a fourplex that I owned in 2006. So this can happen in real estate too. Show me one long-term investment where seeing values plummet isn't a possibility / probability over long enough periods of time. And if you were strong enough to just hold on to it, which I wasn't, so I took a $35,000 loss, now my portfolio would have jumped all the way back up here to 2.6 million before falling off recently to as low as 2 million. Big whoop, boo hoo. Now, if you're actually putting in the effort to really put your focus on your future, you could go out and work for Uber. You do not have to feel this false sense of pressure to be an entrepreneur just because it's trendy right now. You can literally just go out and drive in your spare time and come up with an extra $1,000 after tax to put towards cryptos on a monthly basis. And take a look at what would have happened. 84,000 over 7 years, if you just put 1,000 aside each month instead of into Amazon, stuff you can't even remember what you bought, it would be worth 5.7 million today. And PS, if you just blew that out another 2 years, it would be worth $69.7 million. All right, everybody. I hope my point has been made. Even if this is 90% wrong going forward, if it's a 90% correction going forward, and it's only 10% of this outcome in 9 years, I'm still turning $108,000 into 6.9 million. I'm sorry, but I cannot do that with my real estate options. If you can, please let me know. I'd love to know where you're buying. But in my area, in the areas that I am focused on, which are some of the hottest markets in the country and where most investors are focusing their efforts, I have to tell you, it's impossible. 100,000 doesn't even buy me a $500,000 house after factoring in closing costs, much less fixing it up. So what can I realistically expect to get from that in appreciation over the next 9 years? Is it realistically going to be worth 6.9 million, much less 69 million in 9 years? No. And will the cash flow compensate for that deficiency? No. And this is why I'm investing into cryptos, but I am diversifying among a collection of coins for fear of you taking my investment as some form of advice. I'm not going to share exactly where I've invested those now, but I do focus on the long term, which is why I'm really focusing on educators in that space that teach me, what is most likely to be around 10, 15, 20 years from now. And that's where I choose to diversify my dollar cost averaging. Hope this video helped you. Let's go ahead and reveal the website now. It is dcabtc.com. That stands for dollar cost averaging Bitcoin, as you might have guessed. Go ahead and check it out, play around with it, figure out what you're comfortable investing, and just pretend like you lost it already. Treat it like it's another bill, act like it's gone forever, like it would be if it were your car payment. And guess what? In 10 years, you might be a multi-millionaire. Look forward to seeing you on the next video. Much love, guys. Take care.